Even after we celebrate his resurrection, I still continue to think about the price that he paid for it. The price that he paid for us to be able to do this, to come together and worship him and to live for him. And I heard this analogy this weekend, and I wanted to remind you why Jesus died. It said sometimes that we get this in our mind that we've got this big mound of trash, of garbage right in front of us that is all the mistakes and all the mess-ups from our life, and that Jesus is on the other side of that mountain and he's motioning for us to come on. But we've got so much of this trash in front of us that we don't know how we're ever going to get there. But I want you to know this morning that when he died so that he could come to the other side of that pile of trash to meet you where you're at. And that's why he paid it all.
More than he asked for my way.
Welcome to church. If this is your first time here, you'll notice we do things a little bit differently, but that's okay. If you want to make a contribution to the church or tithes and offerings, we won't pass the plate. Underneath the mirror in the back between the lamps, there's a little basket. If you want to make a contribution, you do that there. If this is your first time here, don't feel compelled like you have to do that or need to do that. That's all up to you and God. Get up and shake somebody's hand and welcome them here to church this morning.
difficult week where you just feel like Satan's just beating you down. I don't know if anybody else ever has weeks like that. But no matter where you're coming from, the brokenhearted, whoever, just let the rescue begin. And it can happen this morning. It can happen right now in this very moment when we're singing. All we have to do is just ask Him. Just sing it out this morning. Come out of sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken hearted, let rescue begin.
Lay down your heart, come as you are. I hope you know that you can come to God that way. Man, that's the only way you can come. And we've been doing this book study called Not a Fan, and this past week we got to talking about how so many times in the eyes of people, whoever is the best at cleaning the outside up, whoever can make this thing look like it's well put together is who people look at and say, you know, they're the ones that really haven't figured out. But if you really know what Jesus does for us, and you really know what it means to be a human being, you realize that anything we do to clean this up don't cover up the stains that are on the inside. But man, the blood of Jesus does. There's nothing you can do to cover that up, but man, He can. And there's nothing about this, man. We can come to Him like we are. Look at me. I hope He'll take me the way I am, because man, this is who I am. Praise God.
Unshakable, let my roots go down deep. Unmovable, unshakable, you. I wanna be unmovable.
God, sometimes it takes the wind to blow us. God, sometimes it takes a storm to wake us up. God, sometimes it takes an event in our lives to make us snap out of it so we see who it is that wants to save us and what it is we need in our lives. God, I know this morning that sometimes it takes a storm to save us. God, I pray right now that whatever the storms are your people are facing, God, may they see the opportunity to look up and see who it is that can calm that storm, to see who it is that's bigger than the storm. God, there are no doubt people here today who you are trying to get their attention because, God, they've just got it in cruise control, Lord. Life is just going on, and most days they don't even feel like they need you in it. And God, sometimes things happen, and the only place we have to turn is you. When we know we're not enough, when we know we don't have enough, God, when we know we can't fix what's the matter, when we know that it supersedes anything we could ever do, God, we have to turn to you. And when we see you, we see who we've been meaning to look at for so long. Because, God, you are the one who can calm that storm. You are the one who can help us overcome that tragedy. You put your son on the cross, you put him in the grave, but you made him rise again. So, God, I pray today that whatever it is in our lives we're dealing with, God, that we'd overcome. If it takes a storm to wake us up, so be it. Use those circumstances, God, to wake us up today. Because I know that sometimes, God, it takes a storm to save us. God, your Spirit is here today, Lord. Would you move these people? God, would you break down barriers? Would you break down walls? God, the levees that hold the Spirit of God back in our lives, God, would you overcome and overwhelm and tear those things down? God, would we find freedom and surrender to you today? God, I know so many of your people today, God, they've got this welled up inside, God, the Spirit, Lord, everything that you want to do, God, what you want them to turn loose of, everything that you want them to look to you for, God, they are packing that thing around, God, and you just want them to surrender that to you. You just want them to let it go. Because, God, it is you and only you who can calm the storms in our life. I pray today, God, that your Spirit would cause people to draw closer to you and to break those walls that they built so high. We love you, God, and your people said amen. All right, so this week I won't make the mistake of the children. They are staying out here with us today. We're going to have a time of communion here at the end. So the kids are staying out. Good morning. The kids are staying out here with us today. I want to share a story with you this morning from this book we've been reading. And we don't always take time to read that part at the end of the chapters. We don't have time. We talk for an hour, and it's always really good, and we don't have time to get to everything we want to. But I want to share a story with you. You know, I would be willing to bet that most people in this room who know they have found God, found Him when they weren't necessarily looking for Him. It's like something came up that they didn't expect. They just agreed to go to church one night with a friend. They found themselves sick or facing some kind of tragedy that they knew they couldn't get over by themselves. You know, so many of us find God, we encounter Jesus when we're not even looking to. I'll tell you a story about a man named Rich Edwards, Dr. Rich Edwards. On February the 10th, 2006, I was in control of my life, and I liked the direction things were going. I had a thriving chiropractic practice, 2 sons, and a devoted wife. On February the 11th, everything changed. I was heading out to my hunting cabin where I planned to meet up with friends and hunt wild boar. As I drove along, I could see the effects from the severe drought we'd been experiencing. Everything seemed to have dried up and died. By the time I reached the road heading to the cabin, it was dark. As I turned, I missed the road and ended up in 5 feet of thick brush. I tried to free my truck by putting it in forward, then reverse repeatedly.
The friction from that somehow ignited the bush. Within seconds, the truck was a large torch. I reached for the door handle to escape, but the electrical system burned out and I was locked inside. Seconds later, the windows exploded. I don't really know what happened after that. I have no idea how I got out of the truck. The next thing I remember is walking down the road to the cabin, telling myself over and over, don't stop, keep going. When I reached the cabin, my friends thought I was wearing some kind of three-dimensional leafy hunting outfit. But it wasn't camouflage. It was shredded, charred skin. A Metaflight helicopter took me to a burn unit where I was told I wouldn't have much of a face left. And I would probably lose my sight as well as the use of my hands. God put an absolute halt on my life. I was so busy being so successful. I was on such a fast track that God was a part of my life, but He was not the most important part. He was not on the throne of my heart or at the center of my universe. I was. I don't believe God caused the fire, but I believe God allowed it because He wanted to get my attention. Like a parent who tries to get through to a child, God grabbed me by the shoulders, set me down and said, I want you to listen to me. That was the beginning of the spiritual awakening in my life. Over the next 4 years, the doctors amputated 7 fingers. I couldn't use what was left of my hands for even the simplest of tasks, but the doctor said there was nothing more they could do. That's when my wife, Cindy, asked about the possibility of a hand transplant. That began a time of waiting, testing, and prayer. Finally, the day for my double hand transplant arrived. 20 surgeons and 3 anesthesiologists took 17 and a half hours to attach my new hands. Many people have pointed out that it was a miracle that I didn't die in the fire that day. That's true, but in a very real way, I did die in that fire. The man I was died that day, and God gave me a new life where I'm not in control, but have turned the controls over to Him. I'm not in charge of my life anymore, but I have submitted everything to Jesus. These days, my wife and I constantly pray to be used by God in any way He wants to bring Him glory. It may sound crazy, but I would rather have gone through all of this pain and suffering and all of these challenges and have the relationship with Jesus that I have now than have continued down the path I was on before the accident without that relationship. My name is Rich Edwards, and I am not a fan. Some of you will have lived or are living the message that I have for you today. Sometimes it takes a storm to save us. This cool title page here, I didn't even give you time to look at that. Take just a moment and look at that. Okay, all right. Matthew 14 is where I'm going to be reading. If you want to follow along with me, I do have the words on the board. On the screen, sorry. Board's a bad habit. Matthew 14:22 through 33. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of Him to the other side while He dismissed the crowd. After He dismissed them, He went up on a mountainside by Himself to pray. When evening came, He was there alone. But the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. During the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw Him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," He said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out His hand and caught him. "You of little faith," He said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped Him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." So Jesus puts His disciples in a boat. You'll find out in just a little while why he put them in the boat to send them across the water by themselves without him. That's a pretty important part of the story. But he put his disciples in a boat and he sent them out ahead of him while he dismissed the crowd and went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. So they're floating along in this boat. A big storm of wind comes up and it starts blowing them around. They're in this boat. They got to be scared to death. The wind is blowing. They don't know what's going to happen. But they know they were in trouble. Have you ever been in trouble? There's a story I wasn't planning on telling, but I gotta tell it. You turn the bass down back there just a little bit on the guitars up here. I get a little ringing or something. Anybody here afraid of the water? You don't have to raise your hand. I'm not afraid of the water. So if you were thinking you're with me, you're not. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Probably as scared of a time as I've been in my life, me and Jed and a good friend of Jed's were in a little tri-hull boat that Jed bought for about, I don't know, $600. Did it cost that much? Something like that. If you're a boat person, that ought to tell you everything you need to know right there. It had one of those old Evinrude motors on it, you know, the ones where you could take off like a jet in about 3 seconds and go, brrr, it just shut down, you know. The power packs, all that stuff. Anybody know what I'm talking about? 3, 2, nobody knows what I'm talking about. So we're out in this boat, me and Jed and his good friend Mike, and Mike can't swim a lick. Big as a bear, strong, was in the desert storm, can't swim a lick. We're sitting out there, the depth finder says it's over 300 feet of water. We're on the dam side of Lake Cumberland there, the lake side of where the dam starts. It's over 300 feet deep. We're fishing. Me and Jed don't have life jackets on. Mike has got about 14 of them on because he's scared to death because he can't swim a lick. And every time he sees that there's 300 feet of water, he says, man, I can't drink that much water, Jed. So he's sitting in the back all sprawled out. Me and Jed, we're all fishing. We're fishing. We fish for 30 minutes or so. All of a sudden, my feet start getting wet. You're right, exactly right. Oh, man. My feet start getting wet. I don't think much about it at first because I'm fishing. We're out on the water. It's possible that I could get my feet wet. And I look down, and I'm ankle deep in water in his boat. What you ought to know about boats, that I don't know if you know or not, but if my feet are wet and I'm standing on the platform of this boat, that means that the hull from there down is already full of water. Jed says, that's all right, don't worry. I got one of them pumps the water out, you know, it shoots a little stream out the side. So he's got this thing on and it pumps like a fire hose, man. It's shooting out. I mean, it is full of water and it pumps and pumps and pumps. And it's still pumping water when the battery starts to die. It starts, and it'll shoot a little, and we know it's still full of water. He said, that's all right, I've got this backup battery here. So he changed that around and it continued to pump water out. He gets to the very end of the pumping. We don't think much about it. We start to fish some more. Well, then he tries to start the boat. And guess what happened? The battery that he used as backup to pump the water out had died. It was too dead to start the boat. So there we were, 300 plus foot of water. One grown man that can't swim a lick. Two that can but are still scared to death because we were a pretty good ways away from where we'd put in a boat that is sinking. I needed help. We had a paddle, I think, one. And we tried to paddle, but it was not going to be enough to paddle us all the way back to where we put in. I'll tell you the rest of it. I just told you the story to tell you that was a time in my life when I needed some help. The boat eventually started, and we finally got back. We didn't die that day, okay, because we're here. But we could have. So right now you're probably revisiting times in your life where you knew that you needed help. You were in a situation that you could do nothing about, and you knew if something didn't happen, if there wasn't some miracle, if God didn't step in, if something didn't happen that you didn't even see coming, you knew that something bad was going to happen to you. I started to think about this story, and I can see these doofuses basically in this boat floating out in the water and the wind's blowing, and I wonder what would happen if God had never sent a storm. They'd have probably just floated on across and never ever even looked up. You know, it's like middle schoolers. I love middle schoolers, right? They're polarizing. You either love them or you don't love them. And there's two different kinds of people in the world, and you're either one or the other. But if you ever try to talk to a teenager when they're on their cell phone, man, they won't even look up. They will try to have a conversation with you once you get hateful with them. About half, you know, listen to me when I'm talking to you. They will try to have this conversation, but they don't even look up. So I wonder what it would have been like in the boat that day. I imagine it would have been a little bit like teenagers on their cell phone. They would have never had a reason to look up because they were just hanging out, man. If God had not sent that storm, they would have never looked up to see who was coming. This man is coming to save them. But you know, they don't look up because they are so consumed with themselves that they don't even realize that they might need anything or anybody else to help them. Until something happens to get their attention, they continue to roll on without a care in the world because they believe deep down that they are enough. Sometimes it takes a storm in your life to make you drop down to your knees to look up and see who it is that wants to save you and who it is that can save you. And I know right now some of you are probably going through those things in your life right now. Have you ever thought that the bad things that happen in your life, the tragedies, the storms, that God may be using those things to try to get your attention? That He may be trying to wake you up? Because He knows if He doesn't do something, if He doesn't do something significant enough to make you look up from your place in life, to put it off cruise control, to look up long enough to see who it is and what it is you need and who it is that can save you, He knows that you're likely to keep walking along day after day of your life without Him. And do you know what happens when you die in your life without Him? Then the storm is too late. So when God sends those things in your life, those storms, those things where you look around and you say, God, why me? Maybe, just maybe, God is trying to tell you something. Sometimes it takes that storm for us to realize that we even need saving. I look out and I think about so many of you. I think about Michael. He said he didn't realize he needed God until God threw him down on the ground with a stroke. Made him learn to use the other hand. I think about your Sunday school teacher who had 3 truck wrecks. Probably each one of them should have killed him. But it didn't. I look around this room and I know you've all got your stories. You've all got those times in your life where you should have died, but for some reason you didn't. Or when something that you thought was going to be the worst period of your life, on the other side of that thing, you ended up finding out something about God that you had never known or never seen before, and it made all the difference in your life. Don't you realize that sometimes it takes a storm to wake you up? That God will use those storms to get you up off your knees, to get you to look up from your life where you're on cruise control. Sometimes, man, it takes a storm to save you. And God knows that. So these men, they're sitting in this boat. It starts storming, and I'm sure they look up and say, well, what are we going to do now? The same thing you and I say whenever something comes along that we can't figure out, that we can't whip on our own. We say, now what? They look up and they see Jesus coming to them. And He's walking on the water. Peter, he's the biggest doofus in the boat, right? Peter says, Lord, if it's you, I want to walk to you. So he gets out and starts to walk, and then he gets scared and gets back in. That's kind of how he rolls, right? That's who he is. He wants to change the world, but he doesn't. He's just a doofus, I guess. But he gets back in the boat because he's scared. Jesus climbs in the boat with them, and all of a sudden the storm is gone. And they look around and they say, "Truly you are the Son of God." So let me get this straight. They're out there by themselves, and it starts storming. And they're scared to death. And they realize that they can't do anything to stop this storm. And if something don't happen, the boat's going to capsize, the boat's going to flip over. They think they're going to die out there that night. But when the storm comes and they decide to look up, when they do, they see Jesus. And He's not motioning for them. He is on their way, His way to them. Because when He sends the storm, He comes to you during the storm. He don't expect you to go to Him because He knows when it's storming, you know you can't go by yourself. Jesus comes to you during that storm, and He can change you. And for the first time, these guys knew who Jesus was, but they didn't realize that He could calm the storm. And when He did it, truly you are the Son of God. When you get to those places in your life, when you look up and you say, "Oh God, what am I going to do now? Why did this happen?" If you will just hold on, man, you can see Jesus coming to you on the water, and He's going to climb in the boat with you, and you're going to say, "Truly you are the Son of God." Because when you come out the other side of those storms and you come out the other side of those tragedies, you knew something about God that you didn't know before. And not only was He with you through the storm, but He came to you through that storm. The storm that you might be living in right now. Have you tried to find Jesus in it? You know, they had a tough time seeing Him at first. That's why Peter said, "Lord, is it you?" Because it was at a time, it was right before the sun's coming up in the morning. It's like the darkest time of the night is when it was storming. And they knew something was coming. But they didn't know exactly what it was. Sometimes initially when that storm comes, it is hard for you to even recognize that Jesus is in that thing anywhere. You don't understand how He could have anything to do with that. You know, probably the most telling thing to me in the whole story is after you know what it all means and what all happens, you go back at the beginning and you see at the beginning of this story, Jesus is the one who put them in the boat. Jesus put them in a boat because He knew there was going to be a storm. And He knew that if they were out there in that storm and they didn't have the answers themselves, He knew that just maybe they would see who He was through all of that. Now, I'm not telling you that when bad things happen in your life that God is the one who does it. I'm not telling you that at all. But I'm telling you that through those storms, God can use that situation for you to see who He is. And for you to see that He's with you. And He's not just motioning for you, man. He is in the boat. He is in the storm with you. And when He gets in, the storm dies down. And anything in the world could be happening outside of that boat and outside of your boat. Anything that could be happening in the world that you still couldn't explain. But when Jesus is there with you and you recognize Him as the Son of God, you know that it's all going to be all right. Because He is with you through the storm. You know, He didn't just calm the storm over the lake that day. He calmed the storm inside those men. And they realized that when life's problems got bigger than they did, that God was still bigger. Do you recognize this morning that no matter how big the storm is in your life, no matter how big the problem is you can't solve, that our God is still yet bigger? You may be living through a storm right now. You may have even asked this morning, God, why? I think it's okay to pray to God, to say, God, right now I can't see you in this. But I know I'm going to find you because I know that you are bigger than whatever storm it is that I'm going through right now. And for some of us, and probably some of you, if it had not been for that storm in your life, you still wouldn't know who God is. Sometimes it takes a storm to wake you up, to wake me up, to wake us up. Here in just a minute, we're going to take communion. And it's going to be a little different than we've done it in the past. But in 1 Corinthians, it tells us that every time we come together to partake of this, that we ought to examine ourselves. You are the only person who can decide whether or not that it is right for you to come to the table to receive communion. And you know, when we do that, we don't believe that the juice and we don't believe that the bread actually becomes Jesus' body or actually becomes Jesus' blood. But when we take that and we examine it, it becomes something so much more than just bread and just juice. We recognize the death that was paid for us. We realize that there was blood that was spilled for us. I want you to bow your heads.